Welcome to our co-host of fitness series, hashtag United Sports. This is available on Ability 360 YouTube channel. My name is Christopher Perry. I am a professor at Bryan Consultant with Ability 360, and tonight's topic is talking all about how to cultivate growth mindset. A time where education is rapidly changing. We have technology that is on the rise in a very supreme way, where many of ourselves, not only children, but adults, are becoming highly reliant on technology, and it's actually starting to have an impact on our psychology. And when we're trying to make the best out of our children for their lives, and we're trying to get the most out of their performance when it comes to overall fitness, when it comes to any aspects of life, when it comes to being successful, learning, or growing, we really need to know the difference between a growth and fixed mindset. When it comes to teaching individuals the ways that we used to be taught when we were kids, maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, those ways are now known as instructor-centered education, which is on the down low. It's on the downfall. It is something that is needing to be changed because it's just not as effective anymore with how our culture has been changing over time. And as such, it's created more difficulty with how our students are progressing through their lives. We're starting to see young children being too highly reliant on social media and not developing the proper. We're seeing the rise of kids being overweight and obese. And a lot of what we're going to talk going to be focused on children, but a lot of these principles can be implied to work for adults as well, because even adults are starting to become highly reliant on technology and seeing higher rates of depression and having trouble with having growth mindsets when it comes to encountering obstacles. And at Bryan University, we really go out of our way to make sure that we help our students the best that we possibly can in cultivating these growth mindsets to help better prepare them for challenges when they come their way, and so that we can better set them up for success. And a lot of these foundations and principles I'm going to be sharing with you all today are going to be able to apply to any young child, adolescent, or athlete who's trying to be successful. Even for yourself, if you find that you struggle with certain things that we're going to talk today, this is going to be helpful for you. So I really hope that you enjoy this presentation. Being a mentor myself at the university, this is something I'm very passionate for, because this seems to be the one area where many individuals across any age range has difficulty with at some point in their life. So here we go. Just a brief little introduction about me. If you've never been here before, my name is Christopher Perry, and I'm an instructor and full-time faculty member at Bryan University in Tempe, Arizona. I've been in strength and conditioning for over 13 years now, and I'm currently finishing up my doctorate in exercise science, specifically on sleep science. So when it comes to what we're going to talk about today, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm going to present you with this picture. And when you see this picture, you see a giant rock in the road. Now, more often than not, some people are going to be like, it's just a picture of a rock in the road. What are you showing that to me for, coach? And I give this to any type of athlete I usually coach. I usually day of class with all of my students. And I ask them, when you see a rock in the middle of the road, what is your first response? Is your first response to turn around and go back the other way? Or is your first response to find a solution and try to critically think about how to get around the giant boulder, how to overcome the obstacle? I often talk about classic Stoic philosophy when it comes to the obstacle is the way. And a lot of times, especially in the classroom, with students, we're starting to find that they have what is called a fixed mindset. When they are presented with some form of challenge, they either cower and not make an attempt towards trying to critically think, or we have the opposite side where we have students with a growth mindset who, regardless of whether or not they know the answer, still raise their hand to try and figure out a potential solution for how they can either grow to continue to potentially learn how to get around the boulder, or what they could. And this is something that we need to really do a good job at younger minds as well as ourselves. I know many adults who even struggle with this to help build that mindset. A lot of these teachings and principles come from a famous professor at Stanford University named Carol Dweck. And Carol Dweck has been doing a lot of research area of psychology when it comes to growth mindsets and what it takes for students to be successful. She's run multiple the educational world, where she's discovered that individuals who have a growth mindset are more likely to overcome adversity. They're more likely to overcome challenge and obstacles. There's a higher correlation with these types of individuals in getting promotions at work and being more successful in life, having higher communication skills, and the list goes on and on and on. And a lot of the individuals, usually the problem we have with especially a lot of children nowadays is when they have fixed mindsets. They're under the belief that they can't change. They're under the belief that they're potentially not good enough. And when you combine this with sports, when we work with athletes at Ability 360, a lot of the stress or drive or lack thereof that we might see in our athletes might potentially stem from also issues going on in school or their personal lives, because you can apply growth or fixed mindsets to any aspect of life. Growing through obstacles in school, when it comes to learning, whether it is you're in grade school, high school, college, or whether it's or performing and developing interpersonal relationships. The list goes on and on. When we have growth mindsets, we're able to find the solutions. We're able to have better teamwork. We're able to better diversify. We're better to able to be successful. So Carol Dweck has outlined a lot of different, especially young children, how it is that we can cultivate this growth mindset, where we can teach kids and how to switch their perspective when they encounter certain types of challenges and obstacles. So to give you an example of what types of things you'll see from someone when they exhibit either one of these things is when they're exhibited some sort of challenge, you will see someone with a growth mindset say the following things, such as failure is an opportunity to grow, or I can learn to do anything that I potentially want. Challenges help me grow. I like to receive feedback. It is constructive to help me become room, at my job, or during my sport. I like to try new things. I see fear as something I need to get through because it's an obstacle, and I know that with action, that fear will be reduced. On the flip side, when we encounter someone that has a fixed mindset, they say the complete opposite types of statements, where you'll hear them say things like, failure is the limit of my abilities. I am not good at this. I'm never going to be good at this. My ability, I don't like to be challenged. My potential is predetermined. I'm frustrated. When I get frustrated, I give up. This is particularly important when we work with the types of athletes that we work with in the adapted sports world. Individuals where we need to really cultivate a growth mindset to inspire self-reliance and being able to increase their self-confidence and self-worth. It is absolutely important. So what is this? Well, when we look in the classroom, we see first thing is a lot of it has to do with the teaching approach, all right? Because if I have one student who has encountered some sort of challenge, then they're going to be the more ones that are going to be more likely to engage, where are either not given the proper amount of attention or encouragement, or more likely to give up, to, in a way, pose than actually want to get to the actual real answer. So there's been research that has been done to see what it looks like when these two types of individuals are presented with particular types of questions and where their motivations come from. And they've actually looked at brain activity when it comes to the difference between a individual with a fixed mindset versus an open or growth mindset. So when we look at this here, this was a study that was done by Carol Dweck back in 2007, and they were able to detect where students focus the most of their attention. So in this particular study, I've copied the actual procedure here for you to see. During the study, they gathered a whole bunch of students, ones that were either classified as being fixed or growth. And the participants were asked a particular question. And then the participants were forced to type their answers. And then when the participants were told whether or not they were right or wrong, then they were hooked up to EKGs that were able to detect what were being activated. And so when the participants were told the correct answer, then they would be able to see what brain activation is recorded. And what they found is growth mindset individuals were active during the entire time. They were curious whether they were right or wrong. Whereas individuals who had a fixed mindset, all they cared about was the fact that they got the answer correct. And so they would only show brain activity when such a thing would occur. So we can relate the same thing as happening as students who are in school who all they care about is less about how to get the answer. They just want the right answer. They just want the grade so they can get out, go home, and do what their mind is really fixed on. Whereas someone with a growth mindset is actually interested in learning how to overcome the issue. So, in a simple way, you could say, okay, we have the fixed mindset individual who's only interested in the end goal. They're constantly focused on the future. Whereas someone who has a growth mindset is focused on the journey. They're focused on what it takes to get to the outcome, which where we know is individuals who practice more being in the present and are able to put their best foot forward. Because as we know, the more you live into the future, the more anxiety you cause for yourself, the more unrealistic goals you usually make for yourself, the less likely you are to achieve them. These are consistent themes that we see throughout psychology. So I'm going to show you a box here that shows what are the consequences when it comes to these particular mindsets. So if I have someone who's a fixed mindset when it comes to a goal in school, more often than not, you're going to find students who just want to look smart. That's more important to them. They're more focused on just getting the grade or getting whatever it is they need to slide by. Whereas individuals have growth mindsets, they're here to learn. They're here to build the skills that they need, that they know are going to pay off later in time. When it comes to their values of effort, none. Fixed mindset individuals are more likely to take the easy way out. They're more likely to take the shortcuts. They're more likely to cheat. They're more likely to get copy off of a friend. Whereas individuals who have a growth mindset, they find a passion for being in the moment and putting in the work. They find that they actually enjoy the activity of working, studying, and putting their best foot forward. When it comes to reactions of failure, this is something we really need to pay attention to because this is how us as coaches can cultivate a better mindset in a way. Because more often than not, reactions to failure, most students that you'll see oftentimes that have fixed mindsets will instantly give up. All right. They won't do the extra studying. They won't go home to ask for help. Okay. They're more likely to just get sucked into their phones. All right. And go right to their sports. Being someone who's worked with students and young athletes for a long time now, especially when I was a coach in high school, you can see this even in study hall. Oftentimes you can see the difference, and usually, unfortunately, the majority of the athletes that I worked with, especially the higher skilled ones, are usually ones that have that fixed mindset. And then when it comes to achievement, fixed mindset individuals have a much lower expectations of themselves. They do not value it nearly as much, whereas achievement usually promotes a much higher boost in self-esteem and further builds confidence of someone who has a growth mindset, which continues to help them cascade further when it comes to them making progress throughout their lives. Okay. So here I'm showing you what's called the recursive process, which shows you that someone that has a growth mindset, they're able to understand that with increased effort usually comes increased rewards. All right. Or at the opposite, is also able to see a challenge and is also able to work through it and continue to grow. And thus, when someone achieves some sort of goal or graduates from school or reaches a particular goal when it comes to whatever weight loss goal they had or whatever sports specific goal they had, whether it's a win, whether it's finally being able to be more self-reliant, it's able to reinforce these positive patterns. Miss Myra, let's wait and do questions at the end, please. Whereas, and that continues to reinforce itself. So, and if you look at the definition of self-confidence is built by increase in actual wins, little victories. That's how we build our self-confidence. You have to take the action and putting yourself out there and get those small little wins and those small little successes that allows you to build that confidence in the activity that you're actually doing. This is why it's so important to create what I like to call SMART goals. All right. And if you're familiar with education, this is a very common theme that we use with students, where when they have a particular goal they're going after, or some big overarching goal, whether it's graduating, winning a state championship, whatever it might be, losing weight if it's a fitness client, so on and so forth. we want to make SMART goals, which are simple, manageable, actually attainable. They have to be realistic. They have to be also in a timely manner. And usually this creates more realistic, smaller goals rather than a large goal. So to give you an example of this, I can apply this to weight loss. All right, I work with a lot of weight loss clients throughout the day, at least I used to. And usually the biggest error someone will make is say, I want to lose 50 pounds in 2 months. Okay, it's impossible, because if you try to help someone achieve that goal, they're going to be more likely to fail very quickly. It's that they're going to find that that takes a lot more effort than what they thought. And then that fail is going to cause them to lose adherence to whatever program you're giving them. It's going to cause them to have a lack of respect for themselves. And once again, they have that fixed mindset where it blows up in their face, and then they're less likely to continue to grow or continue to try again. And thus will continue to reinforce those negative behavior patterns. Whereas when you set SMART goals, such as a better example of this is, okay, I want to lose 50 pounds in a year, but I'm going to focus on losing 1 pound per week, or I'm going to focus on losing 5 pounds in 2 weeks, or I'm going to lose 2 inches off my waist by the end of phase 1 of my program, which lasts 4 weeks. All right. When you make more realistic goals that you can build upon, it's the snowball effect. You continue to create momentum that allows them to continue to get little wins, that builds their self-confidence, which enhances also their own self-worth. So then even when they encounter a challenge, they're more likely to look at the challenge as something that they can overcome because they've won in the past. And that's how you cultivate a growth mindset. When it comes to the opposite side of the process that we see here, when we have someone that has a fixed mindset when they encounter a challenge or failure, that failure results in them developing that fixed mindset. Oh, I can't do this. Woe is me. Okay. The world's out to get me. All right. I'm afraid to try new things. Okay. I have a high level of fear. Then that causes that reduced effort, which then results in their lower achievement. So such as a student in school, instead of getting the B or an A, they receive the C or the D. And because of that, it continues to reinforce their negative behaviors of them not caring, and that having a detrimental impact. So just yet another important aspect of why it is we need to help cultivate and help students, help children, help young adults or adults cultivate growth mindsets. And the big part of it is they can change. All right, mindsets can definitely change. All right? Not only do we know this from behavioral psychology, but we know this from science. It's a concept called neuroplasticity. All right, more often than not, with our behaviors. All right, if you know that you're a certain way and you've done that certain thing your entire life, that's because that's been ingrained to you since childhood. All right, certain attachment styles, certain challenges, ways that you interact with other people, how you make friends, right? How you argue, how you handle sadness, whatever it is, you handle something in a certain way based off of your experiences through childhood, through your adolescent, and then how they solidified in adulthood. But just because you've been practicing a certain habit a certain way for a long period of time does not mean that it can't be changed. With continual effort, you can actually to put forth effort towards the habits you want to choose. A lot of different ways that we can do this. We're going to talk most about the different the ways to do this here closer towards the second half here. But they have actually seen, and in many studies that Dweck actually did, that she talks about in her book Mindset, is that many individuals throughout courses of semesters or terms in school, they were able to experiment and find that within that amount of time, with continual effort, that students were able to rewire their brains and start to see the value in the journey, in putting forth effort, learning in a way. And it's very, very important to know throughout life, you are a lifelong learner at all times. I'm getting my PhD, and even I know that the learning hasn't even stopped. When they tell you you're getting your PhD, they actually show you this picture of a pie, and you actually find out that you think, but at the end of the day, it's just maybe not even a 16th, not even an 18th or a 32nd or a 64th of the total amount of knowledge on that little piece of area of information that's inside of another pie of information, and it goes on and on and on and on. We are lifelong learners, and we need to learn how to fall in love with the process. And knowing through science that the brain can definitely change is a positive way to know that our efforts are not for nothing. What types of things can I do as a teacher, as a parent, as a coach, in order to help teach children, adolescents, or another adult that I know how to start making positive habits? You can look at this from many different directions here, all right? From health perspective or even a mindset perspective. Often people, and sometimes coaches, forget as important as our speed, power, explosiveness, agility, sports specific skills, as important as those are, if we don't have the mental side of it, if student athletes don't have the mental fortitude as a foundation, then you can almost always guarantee failure. Even if they're successful during the sport, we're trying to set them up for the rest of their life after the sport so that they can continue to work hard with whatever challenges they encounter as when they go to college, when they become adults, when they start to have their own families and get into their careers. So what types of things can we do? So the first thing is I'm going to start in the classroom, okay, when it comes to the students. And a lot of it has to do with self-esteem, because nowadays there's as I said in the beginning of the presentation, there is a high amount, an increasing amount of students, of adolescents and children who are suffering from depression. And we're all starting to wonder why. Why at such a young age is they've seen as young as 2 or 3 years old, they are finding that children that young are having issues with communication and are having issues developing friends in preschool and kindergarten. And a lot of it they think might have to do with the increase in technology and parents having a higher reliance on giving their children these devices so that when they instead of socially interacting with other students, such as going to the park or whether in the classroom, they're sucked into a tube. They're looking at some sort of iPad or some sort of cell phone, right? And because of this negative impact that it's having on the development of social skills in young children, it's carrying on with them as they develop further in older ages. So then they have lower self-esteem, lower self-worth. They have problems communicating with other children. They have difficulty having friends. And we know if you're going to be successful as an adolescent or adult in sports or in school, you need to be in an environment that's going to be able to cultivate that. And if you're a young child who, as humans, we all crave connectedness. If you're a young child who has difficulty making friends, then your environment is going to be compromised as far as your ability to learn and have that growth mindset. So it's absolutely important that we teach our teachers how to have more of a student-centric approach to where we help cultivate their self-esteem by doing things such as praise. When we give praise to positive habits with our students, that reinforces that even if they didn't get the right answer, they at least gave the effort towards trying to find the right answer. Because if we associate them doing the work as the positive part of the entire equation, they're more likely to enjoy that process because they know that the result of that will be something greater, and therefore build their self-esteem that will result in the small little wins, getting their assignments completed, getting positive reinforcement from their teachers, and thus resulting in that increase in self-confidence, which is going to help cultivate that growth mindset. So we really need to teach our teachers how to be better mentors and how to promote these growth mindsets. So as teachers, rather than focusing on what their actual talent or intelligence is, we need to focus on their efforts and their strategies. We need to say things like, I like how you tried that new way to solve that. I like how you tried a different way of approaching the problem. What we like to do at Brown University is we use the cookie method. And the Oreo cookie method is where you start off with when you approach a student who's working on a particular assignment, or let's say they're working on a specific task, or if you want to apply this to sports and speaking with your athletes, then you first praise them on saying, hey, I like the effort that's going on here. I like that you're putting forth what you need to do to get this completed. Or I like that you're starting to be more on top of your warm-up drills before you start doing your shots. All right, you're doing the stuff that's needed, but allow me to show you a potentially better way to go off from this point, or let me show you how maybe you can try something different to help you get to a better end result. And then after you've given them the criticism after the praise, then you praise them again, saying, you know, it's awesome that you continue to do the effort. If you continue to put the effort forward, that's going to result in you being more successful. So the cookie method, all right, praise, constructive criticism or feedback, and then cap it with another praise. And that will give them the reinforcement that they need to be like, even though they're not doing it correctly or they potentially failed, that they're still heading in the right direction, that they're still doing what's needed to grow, to learn, and to become better. And oftentimes, especially in instructor-centered education, as myself and many of the adults are familiar with back in the day, is old school teachers, at least the majority of them, don't do much to do that. All right. Many teachers often say, here's your assignment, you're on your own, go figure it out, especially in college. All right. This is even more apparent. And now that we're entering times where jobs are a little bit more scarce, where we're having to work a lot more from home, all right, it increases the stress further on education. And so we really have to take a student-centric approach or athlete-centered approach when it comes to us trying to be constructive and trying to create this positive growth when they approach certain problems. So that's the first step, all right? Teach our teachers, all right? Next is developing better mentoring skills, whether you're, once again, teacher, parent, or coach, or some sort of fitness professional. One of my highlights that I like to teach as a faculty member at Brown University is we teach students how to be fitness professionals. That's directly what we are. We're an exercise science program, and we teach specifically how to build fitness professionals. And one of my main overarching lessons that I always teach is the difference between a simple personal trainer and a fitness professional. And when you look at the difference between the two, a simple personal trainer is someone who sees their client for 3 times a week, and that's it. All right, they give them a good workout at the gym, but there's no further value provided. Whereas a mentor is actually going to lead by example. They're going to be involved in your life. They're going to describe why it is they're doing the particular exercises they're doing to help prevent injury. They're going to show them how to properly meal prep. They're going to teach them what to do when they encounter some sort of challenge. All right, they're going to prepare them. They're going to give consistent outreach where they reach out and say, hey, how was your specific exercise routine going this week? Have you been doing your shoulder rehab like we talked about you needed to do 2 or 3 times per week? And then when they do something great, then you say, you reward them with some positive reinforcement. Hey, you reached your goal of being consistent with your positive habits this week for 4 days. I saw you logged into the app. Great job. Let's keep it going. All right. Or whether it's some sort of athlete who is achieving their goals consistently, a coach can do a really good job by outreaching to their athletes, providing that support, giving them what they need as far as giving the absolute value. We need to be mentors as much as possible, especially when it comes to young children. Right? They need that teaching to help them get through these types of things. Having the mentor is probably one of the most beneficial things you can have in your life, because then the overall goal of that mentor is to reproduce yourself onto them so that they can be more resilient, they can be more self-reliant, and they can build up. And then once they reach a high level of success, can reproduce themselves onto someone else who needs help. So when it comes to mentoring, the principles that we use at the university where I head up our mentoring program is we go off a lot of John Maxwell's principles of influence. And this is taken from his book, How to Be a Person of Influence, where he talks about the key factors that a mentor should focus on. All right. First one being integrity and being able to show when you want to do things for the purpose of doing them from the heart and doing it because it's the right thing to do for others. You want to encourage nurturing, where from a mentor's perspective, you're going to nurture your student or your mentee's abilities to be able to push through challenges, or you're going to be wanting to encourage them. You're going to want to motivate them, all right, in a positive, constructive way. You want to show that you have faith in your athletes or your mentees, all right, that you believe that you actually physically and full-heartedly believe that they can do whatever it is that they're setting out to. This is especially important for working with adapted athletes who are struggling with their injuries or the particular conditions, right? Being able to listen and understand some of the most important communication keys. That this isn't only apparent in John Maxwell's principles of influence, this is in human interaction overall in psychology. The purpose of listening to someone is to hear from their perspective. You want to be able to try and understand why it is they feel the way that they feel. This is all how we build rapport and establish building a strong relationship between one another. And when a mentor can do that, then they can build that better rapport with their client, mentee, or athlete. And thus, your mentee or athlete starts to trust in you more. They're going to take more of what you say and take it more seriously. They're going to be more likely to do what you tell them to do when you give them exercises to do at home, all right? When you actually show that you care and that you're actually trying to understand what it is that they're going through. You want to enlarge them and be able to build when they achieve something, positive reinforcement. But you also want to enlarge them in a way that's also going to be able to handle negative reinforcement or failure. You're going to want to enlarge their abilities to navigate certain challenges, which is where we get to the next factor. When they encounter obstacles in the road, when they encounter failure, you want to be able to ensure that you prepare them with the habits that they need to be able to handle that appropriately. Because as we all know, as adults especially, is that success is not linear. Success is up and down, all right? It rocks the boat. Even when we do good things, bad things still happen. We need to be able to teach younger individuals how to navigate those waters so that when they encounter struggles later on in life, they have that growth mindset to be able to push forward. We want to be able to connect them and provide them with opportunities to not only connect with others that are in their specific social circles, but also professionally and further on. We want to empower them and ultimately want to reproduce, which means build ourselves onto them so that they can be able to be more self-reliant. This is how we inspire stronger behavior change in individuals who are trying to change their health and change their habits. This is how we produce strong children with strong self-esteem who are going on to higher forms of education or higher forms of sports. Right? This is how we help create great human beings. The next way, all right? So now we're going to go more from the mentoring side of things and now getting down into the actual grit, all right? Helping, which, I've seen a lot of young kids, and if I look into my own past, this is something I struggled as a kid as well, is discipline, right? Discipline, and I don't mean the negative like you're disciplined. I meant like actual discipline of practicing positive habits, of doing what needs to be done when you're supposed to do things, of taking advantage of your time. We live in an age where we have a lot of millennials, and unfortunately millennials are a little different from Gen X and Gen Y, to where they're less likely to have this discipline, either because of the environment that they're being raised at home, or simply because it just was never enforced, or the teachers that they're around, whatever it is. So somehow society has melded a lot of individuals today where discipline is very, very low in apparency. It's just not there. All right. So as teachers, mentors, coaches, this is something we really need to focus on at building within our younger individuals. One of the first way that we do this, build a routine. All right. One of the things that I teach my students is I like to always say, I'm going to use some very cliche things to where these things are very duh. These things are, well, sure, that seems very easy. Then if it's so easy, why is it that no one does it? And it's the lack of discipline. When you have a routine, all right, and I just have a simple example here, but when you have a routine and you consistently adhere to that routine, you're more likely to build those positive habits over time. And we know that, especially with someone that has, say, a fixed mindset or they don't have a routine, it's usually going to take upwards of 30 to sometimes 90 days or more before it actually becomes rigid and it becomes ingrained into them. Building a morning routine allows them to have structure, all right, and more respect for their time. Because then once they have that routine, especially young children, where they get up first thing in the morning, organize their day, whatever it is they do, it allows them to practice better habits, especially when it comes to having a positive mindset. All right. One of the biggest things that I usually encourage individuals to do, and this is a little side thing, is to journal or to somehow practice saying self-affirmations to yourself. We deal with a lot of individuals and kids who struggle with their own self-image and their own self-esteem issues. building that and cultivating that and teaching them to do that on their own with some sort of routine by having some sort of journaling practice or morning motivation practice is a great way to get younger kids, college students, whatever it might be, started on the right foot every single day. And the more that they do it, the more it'll be ingrained into their better patterns. They're more likely to carry out those positive habits we're trying to establish later on in the day. The second thing that building a routine will do is also gives them a respect for time. Time is the one valuable resource in this world. You can make more money. You can find times to be with other people. You can get that particular possession back. But at the end of the day, time is the only thing that you cannot get back. And it's one of the things that many individuals, not just kids, adults of all ages, waste often. When it's such a valuable resource, this is something that should be taught in schools, but usually isn't. And one of the most, this is a picture of Brendan Bouchard. Brendan Bouchard is a productivity manager, and he works with many successful entrepreneurs of companies, such as Tony Robbins or Oprah. He's also the author of High Performance Habits. And one of his strategies is to block time. And if we can teach younger individuals how to do simple time management, then it becomes, and as a part of their routine, then they're going to be more likely to practice those positive habits and organize their day and become more disciplined. Because when you actually schedule something to be done at a certain time, you're more likely to do it. Whereas if you go into your day randomly with saying, okay, I know I have this homework assignment here, and I know I have practice with Coach Robbie, and then I know that I got to do this and do that, you're more likely to procrastinate on the things that should be done. And then all of a sudden, you get to Friday or Saturday and something that's due Sunday night, you look at your schedule or you look at your homework page, you're like, oh no, I forgot to do this, all right? And you're more or less likely to get things done. If we want to talk about this with adults who have bigger projects, such as being in graduate school or working on bigger plans or projects at work, for instance, if you're not dedicating a little bit of time throughout the day, each and every day, you're less likely to get that done. And the more random you are with your organization like this, the more time you lose to actually do things that you want to do with your time. So time management is definitely a big something that we can teach younger individuals and adolescents or adults that can be really positive in helping them build that discipline. The next thing is all about cultivating environments, and this is a picture of Dr. Benjamin Hardy. But Dr. Benjamin Hardy is the author of Willpower Doesn't Work. He's also an inventor, environmental psychologist. He has done his PhD looking how behavior changes based off your environment. And most of the research that he's done, he has found it doesn't matter how hard you try to change a behavior. If you are putting yourself into an environment that is not conducive to that specific change you want to make about yourself, or if you are in an environment or you're surrounded by people, let's say for instance you have weight loss goals, if you're in an environment around your family or friends that aren't supportive of that, or exhibit those negative behaviors themselves of being overweight or not eating well, you are more likely to fail. You are less likely to be able to be successful. Doesn't matter how hard you're trying to work through things in your own head or trying to work those things out. So a lot of the things that he talks about is two different types of things. Is A, try to enhance your environment the best that you possibly can, right? And this is where we need to really educate our parents when it comes to things like living a healthier lifestyle, or practicing more mindfulness habits at home, all right? Reducing screen time on phones and technology, all right? So that they can be more social connectedness within the family, so there can be more focus on developing positive habits. Another thing that Benjamin Hardy talks about is identity change. And what he means by that is usually you'll have individuals who are used to failing, have self-limiting beliefs, okay? Or let's say we have an adult who has been trying to lose weight for years and they go back and forth. This is called the yo-yo diet phenomenon, where they'll hop on a trend and they'll do a diet for a certain amount of time, they'll lose the weight. But then what happens for the next 6 months, they gain all that weight back. And people start to wonder, why did that person gain all that weight back? Well, it's because they didn't fully change their identity, right? They didn't fully commit to living the lifestyle permanently. Now, this is something that's more applicable to adults, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, how can we do that to a child who's currently learning? Well, this is true, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we cannot educate them about how to develop the positive mind habits and teach them how it is that they could possibly choose who it is they want to be and what it requires for them to be what it is they want to be later on in life. So very, very important that we teach mentors, teachers, parents that the environment that our children are in is just as important when it comes to overall behavior change and building these positive habits and cultivating that growth mindset. The next, now this is just one of my favorite things when it comes to developing positive habits, is a little thing from Stoic Philosophy, if you're familiar with Marcus Aurelius. But he talks about Ryan Holiday wrote 3 books, including The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, and Stillness is the Key. And he revolves his entire workings around Stoic philosophy, where Stoics will usually practice principles of virtue, where they try to do the best in every situation, and they try to look at problems with objectivity. They try to work on controlling their emotions. They frequently practice positive habits such as journaling and self-reflection, so they continue to improve. So ultimately, the biggest reason why I choose The Obstacle is the Way when I'm doing a presentation like this is that this is one of the overarching themes that we need to teach younger athletes, younger students, that whatever is standing in your way of feeling better, okay, that's what you need to get done in order to move forward. And most times what we see in the classroom, we see students that are struggling with the project, all right, or a simple assignment, all right. A lot of the stress is self-induced when it comes to students, when it comes to adults, okay. I'll use myself as an example, all right. I've been working my doctorate for almost 5 years now, and I know that the biggest thing that's in my way that causes my stress is the thing that has to be done. The overall overarching theme that we need to teach here, and this is usually the biggest cause of procrastination or inaction, is fear, all right? The biggest reason why you put things off or why students procrastinate is because they're scared. They have fixed mindsets, usually because either they don't want to do that assignment or because they fear that they don't have the skills to do that or they don't know that information or simply that, oh, that's hard or that takes effort, that takes time. They're more likely to shy away and not do it and continue to put it off. Whereas little do they know that when you take action and get that done, you feel better about yourself, you relieve that stress, and thus that will go forward to being able to reinforce that positive behavior and you learning how to be more present in the moment and focus on falling in love with the actual process. That will decrease the overall level amount of fear at the end of that, which will then help you build the momentum to continue to push forward and conquer. You learn the ultimate lesson of all. Action is the cure for anything. It's always action. Oftentimes, a lot of individuals overthink. Paralysis by analysis, I like to call it. Whereas if you were just to remove the overthinking and just do it, you'd find that you would do it in 3 seconds. This is seen, I'll use a personal example. This is seen a lot with athletes to where they have a fear of doing something until they actually do it. And there was an instance where I was coaching an athlete who couldn't believe that they could actually get themselves out of their chair and into a stationary chair and completely manipulate their body weight on their own until they saw someone else do it who had the same amount of ability as they do. And then once they saw that, they had the courage to be able to push through it. And then as they continued to practice, they got better and better each time. All right. Action is something we need to teach younger individuals. And oftentimes, a lot of individuals our own age, adults as well. The next thing, and I had to talk about this, is social media and technology. Now, when it comes to having growth and fixed mindsets, there's a lot of biased opinions on what is the positive or negative impact of using social media and technology. And correct, when it's used responsibly, social media and technology is a great gift. It can be used to find credible information. It can be used to build businesses. It can be used to promote social interaction. It can be used to build communities. It's a beautiful thing when used correctly. When it is abused, which is most often it is, then it can be a time waster. It can decrease your self-esteem. It can decrease your social connectedness. It can increase your levels of anxiety and dependency and start to have negative impacts on your own interpersonal relationships by needing to be more co-independent. You become more conditioned to care more about what others think through likes on pictures, right? That's a real thing, all right? it starts to have a negative impact on our mental health. And the issues why I'm bringing this up is because we're seeing it more in children than anything else. All right. And if we want to cultivate these growth mindsets of being able to overcome challenge, we also need to establish how it is they're consuming information on a daily basis and where they're getting their information from. So very, very important that we pay attention that although social media can be a good thing, it can also be a very bad thing when it's used incorrectly. We need to also promote stronger learning strategies, okay? And I combine this with growth with leadership. So a lot of times teachers don't allow our students to learn the correct way. Oftentimes in instructor-centered education, teachers would define one way of learning something without actually entertaining the fact that many students learn differently from one another. Some students learn better auditory ways, to where they like to hear things, they like to speak or talk things out with another individual. Whereas some students are more book-centric, okay? Otherwise, some students are more hands-on, all right? So we need to take more of an integrative approach to how we're teaching our students or our athletes how to learn things, all right? We also need to make sure that we inspire growth through leadership. All right? In order to build a student's confidence or an athlete's confidence or your son or your daughter's confidence, every once in a while, you have to let them lead. You have to let them make their own decisions. Of course, especially the younger ones under your supervision. But a lot of the reasons why we're starting to see an increased number of students have these fixed mindsets and do poorly in school is because they're not challenged. They are not forced to critically think. They're not forced to make a decision. All right. So just to give you a basic example, let's say a father and his two sons are going on a hike, okay, and they come to a fork in the trail. And instead of the father, of course, who knows all the different ways and directions, leaves it up to his oldest son to say, and I want you to lead where we're going. And the child responds by saying, I don't exactly know where we're going. And he says, well, you're leading today. We're going to figure out where we're going to go, and I'm going to let you lead. And so the child takes them down the path, which the father knows is a dead end. Okay. And so the child leads and gets to the point where it's a dead end. And he's like, Dad, this is dead end. And then he's like, okay, so you're the leader. What do we do? And this forces them to learn the process of making decisions, of learning how to lead, of learning how to grow. And so what did the child do? Turns around, takes them back the other way, and goes back the other way to where the trail is supposed to go. When us as mentors and teachers and parents allow our children to have experience like this, it gives them more comfortability with making their own decisions, especially with under our guidance, and we can teach them how to make more positive decisions. And this will help build their overall self-confidence later on and build their overall critical thinking skills. So when they encounter a challenge on an assignment, on an exam, during a game or competition, they're more likely to be able to handle that situation with care and handle it much better rather than giving up and completely doing away with actually trying to grow and learn from that experience. So my overall closing thoughts here, all right, is us as professionals in this world, whether it is we're a fitness professional, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, we need to understand the importance of growth versus fixed mindset and how important it is to cultivate someone's ability to be able to see a challenge and march forward and critically think how to find the solution for it. We need to be able to develop better teaching in classrooms approach where we put the focus onto the student and we do whatever it is that we can to make sure that they're getting the best experience possible, that they're getting the praise that they need, that they're getting the cultivation to want to continue to learn and push forward. We need to be able to have mentors and coaches for all individuals of any age so we can help teach them how to navigate challenges. We learn how to communicate and help build rapport, helps develop their abilities to be able to develop relationships. We need to teach discipline and have structure, teach them how to have routines and how to build those positive habits, how to manage their time so that they have time to do the things that they really need to do and get things done, how to build those positive habits, and overall, how to take action and understand that action equals progress. And when we make progress, we feel more fulfilled, we feel better about ourselves, increases our self-esteem, which increases our confidence, increases our chances of success. So overall here, we need to teach how to love the journey. We need to teach individuals how to love what they're doing here and now and not living in the future. We need to teach individuals how to learn how to practice their sport. We need to teach individuals how to learn how to love researching a topic or figuring out how to do a math problem or figuring out that just because I'm bad at writing, all right, or I'm uncomfortable writing, that the more that I write, the more that I'm going to get better. If I'm poor, if I'm bad at public speaking or bad at communicating or going up to people, the best way to learn is to put myself out there and continue to take action and learn by talking to other people and developing those skills. It's all about the journey. This is now the time where I'll be able to take any questions. And if you're interested in learning more, my contact information is here. You can also get this from Ability 360. This has been a presentation by Ability 360 in partnership with Move United Sports with our hashtag Adapt at Home project here, where we're trying to enhance the learning and knowledge of all our members and everyone who's interested. Thank you for coming.